Hello and welcome to the Supercoach BBL Hub podcast. I'm your host Nathan from SuperCoach Guns, and with me I've got a couple of absolute legends. I've got from Insight Fantasy Sports. I've got SuperCoach Braino, how you going?
I'm well. I'm well, thanks, mate. Looking forward to having a bit of a chat. We've got a pretty big week coming up, so plenty to talk about this round.
Absolutely, and with me I've also got SuperCoach Loch. Loch, how you going?
Yeah, not too bad, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Quite all right. Well, before I race into today, we'll look at the Supercoach Hub community results. Now, our leading scorers for the season, we've got Team Damien Marr on Twitter. He gets around. He's 14th overall. We've got Hales Storm. Jake, who's 52nd overall. I believe he's a part of the Supercoach experience. And then we've got the runs, who's 85th overall. So we've got a couple of high ups there. Now, in terms of the highest score for the round, Terrace Crew, who's run by Matthew, scored a whopping 1,312, which is absolutely monstrous this round. We also got five scores in the top 100 and 40 in the top 1,000. So, pretty decent round for the hub there. Now, let's have a look at the round that was. I've labelled it Maxi is the GOAT of the BBL, which I think is pretty fitting. Game one, the Stars and the Strikers, and, well, carrying off the title theme, Glenn Maxwell. He just does everything. He's bowling four overs and he's looking like the best. He looks like the best bowler in the team and he looks like the best batter in the team. Seriously, how good is he?
Yeah, there was, I think, a lot of risk initially with people were thinking he wasn't going to bowl with that forearm injury. There was maybe one game, I think, a couple of rounds ago that he didn't bowl, and people got a little bit skittish on him. But I mean, do people forget what he just did in the World Cup? What month and a half ago? You just can't not have him in your team. I noticed that he is still only 93% owned in the top 1% of teams at the moment. So there's somehow 7% of teams up there in the running that don't have Maxi in their team, which is wild.
Yeah, it does beg to. It does ask the question: How on earth are they actually in the top one
Yeah,
percent? But um, well, Marcus Stoinis, he finally did something with the bat this season and did it pretty well. 55 not out off 19 balls. Locke, did you own him? And
I
it was good to
yep,
see him back in vintage Stoinis.
yeah. Well, I said on my video, like, Stoinis, nice of you to join us. Finally, I've had him from the start, and I was watching the game live. I thought, come on, I was jokingly sort of like, it'd be nice if you get a quick 50 here, and by then he finished it off. What was it with like sixes in a row? Oh, sorry, a couple of sixes in a row or something like that.
Yeah,
And yeah, I was absolutely stoked.
yeah, he played. He finally did something this season, which is, well, I guess nice to see. Then we had Imad Wazim. He looked like someone who'd score 80 to 90 comfortably in a double. It wouldn't hurt you too much, but it would get a nice solid score. Yeah, of course he goes out and scores five in the first game and ruins that. Absolute trap. Did either of you guys fall for it like I did, or is it just my foolish self?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
was
I got him. I had a choice between him and Webster. I didn't choose Webster because of his high break even, and yeah, ouch.
Yeah, yeah. Ouch indeed. But at least you got the extra 70K for this round, or
Yeah,
well, yeah. Um, Jeez, he didn't look good at all. To be honest, that's just the truth. And then we go to the Hurricanes and the Thunder. Now, one of my favourite batters to watch in full fly is Ben McDermott, and so seeing him score 55 of 34, I believe it was, yeah, it was good viewing. Is he in either of your trade plans for round seven, or is he too volatile?
for me personally. I've had him since round one.
Oh
Um,
well.
So he's just sat there plodding on my bench with very high expectations and just hasn't been delivering. And it was nice to be able to loop him in and get his points this round. So that worked out quite well. But yeah, it's been a pretty lean season from him so far. Kind of disappointing. But there's plenty of positives because he's doing it now at the right time, isn't he? Coming into his double potentially in round 7. So hopefully he can find a bit of form and get another score this week and then do the job for us in his double.
Yeah, absolutely. Loch, do you own him?
Yeah, I do own him. I had him since the start. Yeah, he's just been sitting on my bench. I actually had the emergency on him this week. Um, with the weather in Melbourne, I wasn't sure if the Cock was going to get a game. I might have done this anyway, but I actually used my last boost and brought in Josh Inglis so I could get McDermott's score.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which I
Yeah,
was
and
going to
then
do this round anyway.
yeah, and well, Nikhil Chowdhury, he finally bowled more than one over, and when they gave him a fair go, he performed 2 for 26. He had his breakout game. Um, is he a sneaky consideration if you don't own him, or is that role just too uncertain? Obviously, if you own him, you're going to start him round 7.
Yeah, well, I actually traded him last week. I think he's still relatively cheap. I think he is, what is he, just over 90k or so with a low break even. Yeah, so I got him in 80k. A lot of people would have started him, just as a loophole at 42k, and like he's actually turned out to be one of the better cash cows for the season.
Yep, that's exactly me. And no, it was. If they use him correctly, he's got a pretty decent role for a cash cow. Bruno, what do you think?
Oh, 100%. I think he's a guy that people nearly must have next round. I mean, he's 97k with a negative 40 break even. So, like, I know that there's a lot of priority at the moment around Perth players and getting Perth players in. But if you've set yourself up, it sounds like you've both have set yourself up with at least a couple leading into this week. And if you don't want to overcapitalise, you want to have four scorchers and 3 strikers, which is what most people have. Why don't go and get Chowdhury ahead of their double? Make a little bit of cash this week. It looks like he's going to bowl more often than he isn't now. So I feel pretty good about his role, to be honest. I think he's a good option.
Yeah, and he seems to, whenever he gets any sort of opportunity, he's performing. So he looks like a really good cricketer. I think he's averaging something like 48 on the season, which is hard to think about considering he was a number 7 that didn't bowl. So he's performing really well. And I guess the final point I have from this game is Chris Jordan going to be a popular trade target in round 7? He's getting better with each game with ball in hand, and he's got bat bowl, so you could plug in a death bowler in your batting slot, and that's always a game changer. Either of you guys considering Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the role's too nice with him. I mean, even batting 8 now, he's slid down the order a tad, but batting 8, bowling death, it's kind of what you like. I've been chasing death bowlers all season, so I think him and maybe Nathan Ellis are the 2 guys I'm looking at next week. They just have those really nice bowling roles, so I'll be looking at one of them for sure.
Yep, Lock.
yeah, they're the two I'll be looking at. I'll be looking at Nathan Ellis and Chris Jordan for the reasons, Brain said just before.
Yeah, fair enough. And they're not too expensive either of them, but I'm very keen on at least owning one of them because, well, they're bowling 19th and the 20th. One of them's going to take a couple of wickets late, so well, at least one of them, I should say. Now, obviously, we didn't get a game 3 between the Heat and the Sixers. It's protected a couple of prices, such as Paul Walter from reaching that sort of 200k mark, or yeah, he's the only one that I can recall off the top of my head. So with Paul, how are you approaching Paul Walter? Do you own him? And if you didn't, would you be looking to buy him this week?
Yeah, I own him. Yeah, I'd definitely be looking to bring him in. He has that nice role. He'll hopefully bowl his 4 overs. And yeah, batting at 6. And yeah, where's he playing? He's playing at Coffs Harbour. Is that a big ground at all? Yep. Okay.
It's no, it's not a
No.
big ground. More so, just I mean, it might be bowler friendly.
Yeah, yeah, oh
For
yeah,
the
true, yes.
it's been underwater the last couple of days, or it looks like it's dried out now nicely now. But whenever a wicket gets that much water on it, it's going to do a
Yeah,
bit. I'm sure.
yeah,
So
Yeah. Well, we'll move to the final game of the round, and this is the Stars and the Renegades. Now, there's a few interesting points here. I mean, we've already touched on Glenn Maxwell, but yeah, gee, I mean, 250 points and a double. He's 230,000 with a minus 50 break even. If super coaches are looking for money, you can't turn to him. You can't sell him because you will never get him back. I don't think.
No. Yeah, I mean, even if he was 100 or 250,000 and had a 200 break even, you don't trade him. I don't think. Like, he's just one of those guys you keep in your team and you just ride it out for the rest of the season and you look elsewhere. I know a lot of people are moving on Daniel Sams, and I saw Maxwell in the top 5 most sold this round, which is just wild for me. And I know people are trying to use that cash to get to the premium Scorcher options this week, but I'd urge people to probably try and look elsewhere and find another way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd definitely try and hold because if you trade him out, then how are you going to get him back in the next round? Like, are you going to trade one of your Scorchers players you just brought in, but they're on the double? So, how are you going to do it?
Exactly, and whilst you're still scrambling for Heat players and Hurricanes players, so it's too hard to sell him. You've got to sell someone else like Daniel Sams. I understand why he's probably close to the most sold player this week, but now Will Sutherland didn't bowl at all. I mean, we covered that. Well, we didn't cover that. We covered that before the show. Do we have any idea why? And if not, is there cause for concern?
Oh, look, for me personally, I'm going to hold him. I think him not bowling might have been circumstantial last night. I mean, I have seen, and I don't want to go and throw this out there without any kind of claims at all, but there has been a couple of people on Twitter that have said that he was carrying a niggle is why he didn't bowl. I'm not 100% sure on the source or whether that's reliable, so take it with a grain of salt. But regardless, I think he's the captain. He's going to still bat 6, 7. They've been very open about the fact he's going to come up the order if they need quick runs. Last night was a 14 over game, so how much do we take from that in terms of bowling rotations as well? There's not too much reliability with the way that their bowling was last night. John O'Well's bowled, for Christ's sake. Like, that's never going to happen ever again. So, I think, there's cause for concern, obviously, but I think you've got to trust the pedigree that is Will Sutherland. You want the best players in your team come round 9. I think he probably is up there.
Yeah, agreed. Loch?
Yeah, definitely agree with that. But probably he's in my. I'm actually looking to trade him out just because I need to trade someone out that's is is worth anything. So to get the players that I want, like your Richos, your Ties, etc. And yeah, he has the. I think in the next round he has a buy as well. So could I look to get him back in possibly? But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm mildly concerned, but also like I had around I don't know 6 Thunder and Heat players, 5 Thunder and Heat players. So I just had to got to move those guys out before you can do anything about um, other garbage in your team or questionable picks. Now the Melbourne Stars, their bowling rotation is possibly the definition of a lottery. They have more bowlers in their top 6 batting lineup than they do in their tail end. Like, how do you predict who's going to get overs? Is it just pick all of them, or is it stay as far away as possible?
I had no idea that Dan Lawrence even bowled at all. He just came from nowhere.
Oh. Yeah, he's
There's
got
a bit of
weird
Paddy
action.
Dooley about him too.
Yeah,
Bit going on.
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, so I don't know how you approach that Stars lineup, but they don't have any more doubles. So are they that relevant? Probably not. That's probably for the best, honestly.
Probably
Yeah,
Maxwell, that's it, I think. And it's like, what do
yeah.
you got? You got Merlo and Harper batting at 8 and 9 and don't bowl. What's going on there?
You've just triggered me a little bit there by saying the word Harper. I've had him since round 1, and he's hurt me so much. He's the biggest regret pick of the season for me by a long way.
Yeah, he has been absolutely horrendous. Like, it's not often you see an opener go from the top of the order to number 8 in like a month. Like, I've never heard of that before. But yeah, gee. Well, I guess that pretty much wraps up the round that was. Now let's look forward. Round 6. Can you guys run me through your approach and your strategy for round 6?
Do you want me to start, or do you want to go?
Yeah,
Loch?
yeah. Oh, okay. Brain, you start.
All right. obviously with the Scorchers on the double-double, you're going to get 4 games out of these guys, let's hope, over the next 2 rounds. And I know that, there's people talking about the tour match coming up and whether Hardy and Jai and all these guys get picked for that. I don't think we can look too much into that. I think we just need to look at what's in front of us and not try and predict too much of the future. So for me, I'm going to boost this round. I only had one Perth player in my team up until now. I didn't kind of preload any Scorchers into my team like a lot of others did. So I'm going to boost 4 Scorchers players in this round. So I'm going to attack them pretty heavy. I've already got Matt Short, Overton, and Darcy Short. So I've got the 3 strikers I kind of wanted for this round anyway. So I'm going to try and do my best to get in Inglis, Hardy back because I sold him. I'm going to get Jai Richardson in, and I'll explain why in a second. And then I'm going to take a punt on Zach Crawley. A bit of a left field pick. We know that Adelaide Oval and Perth at Optus Stadium are roads. They're very flat wickets. There's a lot of runs scored at those venues. So my tactic this week is to attack the batsmen on both teams and try and avoid as many of the bowlers as possible from both of these teams, considering they play each other. I don't really want to have my bowlers bowling at my batsmen if possible, if I can avoid it. Otherwise, you're just kind of sharing points. So that's probably maybe the long-winded answer of my tactics this week is just going hard on the Scorchers and avoiding bowlers altogether in those matchups.
Yeah, fair enough. Loch?
Yes, like Supercoach Brain, I actually have Matt Short, Darcy Short, and Overton in my team already. So last week I traded, I've actually, over the 2 buys, I actually held Aaron Hardy. It's a bit of cash to carry on the bench, but I thought, same as what we discussed before about training at Maxwell, how was I going to get him back in? And I also traded in Andrew Ty last week, just to use him as a loophole. And I also used my last boost in the previous round. I traded Quinton de Kock. I was a bit concerned about the rain-affected game, and brought in Josh Inglis so I could take McDermott's score on the ground. And so I've got 3 trades this week. Looking to trade in. This will change. I might, like Brain just said, I might look at a Zach Crawley type. And like you said, if I'm trading in Perth Scorchers bowlers, they're going to be bowling to Darcy Short and Matt Short. So, I'm going to be wanting Richo to get wickets. But also, please don't get any of my batsmen out, which are both opening. So, but I probably still will go Richo. I've got Lance Morris at the moment because he was all that I could afford. Couldn't get to Berendorf. But I might change that to get in, say, a Cooper Connolly so that I have the cash instead. Because I've got my other Perth player. I've actually got Laurie Evans at the moment. He's cheap. I think he's about 60k or so. He scored a 60 odd. He's moved up to 5 since Ashton Turner's been injured. Like, it's just only one game. He scored 59, but across 4 innings, I thought he could get 1 or 2 maybe decent scores in there. But and looking at Zach Crawley, I have not locked in my trades at all. But yeah. We'll see what happens with I might wait for their team selections made.
No, I like the Laurie Evans shout. It's ballsy, and you can easily just chuck him on the loop and just yes, he's playing a double, but like he's the sort of guy that at that price it's very easy just to loop him in. For me, I think I've adopted a pretty generic strategy. I've gone with four Scorchers, 3 strikers, trying not to overload, considering they both play each other. But I also had a little bit of a look towards next round. So I've taken out Daniel Sams, Imad Wazim, and Alex Hales, and I've brought in what's his name, Aaron Hardy. I've brought in Zach Crawley for the same reasons that you just said, bro. No, and I've brought in Spencer Johnson as well. Spencer Johnson's pretty cheap, 100k. Got a negative break even, and as we've discussed, that Coffs Harbour deck could be a bit quite bowler friendly. So I figure I may as well capitalise on that. Crawley, we've been over, pretty batter friendly, and it's a very high risk strategy. But I've gone with 5 batsmen in. I've got all 4 openers across both teams, and I've got Aaron Hardy at 3 as well. And the only bowler I have, look, actually, I have a few people that bowl, but the only out and out bowler that I have is Jai Richardson, I guess, which I think probably is the way to go, considering they're both flat decks.
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing. I've got the top 4 batsmen from Perth and the 2 openers from the strikers. And you're right, there's so much risk in this because if we go into this and maybe there's a little bit of juice in the wicket at both of these places, it's a complete fumble. It can go backwards very quickly. But we had a couple of questions on the Insight BBL podcast last night around potentially fading Jai Richardson. Because obviously he hasn't really had a great season so far. He's been a bit underwhelming. He's lost a lot of cash. People maybe have lost a little bit of faith in him. But an interesting fact to know is that he averages 85 against the Adelaide Strikers in his BBL career. That's the second most amount of points he averages aside from Hobart. And then he also averages 80 at Adelaide Oval and 66 at Optus Stadium. So there's plenty of reasons to buy him this week. And I can't actually find one to fade him aside from the wicket being flat. So I'd probably urge people to just go with pedigree in this instance rather than looking at the numbers from this season.
Not going to get Richo any cheaper.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
No chance.
And for someone of his quality to be worth 170 and not have had a very big season at all, it's very rare. If there's ever a time for him to bounce back, it'd be over this 4-game period, and he could go absolutely monster.
And let's face it, he only needs one big game, doesn't he? And he can peel off 120. He can go and get you 3 for max economy rate bonus, make people look silly. He's got your 100 points, and then you've got 3 more games over the next round and a half to kind of capitalise on whatever he's going to make from there. So, yeah, don't fade Jai.
No.
And just remember, he also had that 0 from the dangerous pitch down in Geelong. So, like all the other Perth Scorchers bowlers as well. So, they're all a bit underpriced, I reckon.
Yeah.
Except for
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Now, I suppose we've all run through our initial trades, so we'll finish it off with trade targets. Who do we think our top 5 trade targets are for the round ahead?
You go first, Loch.
All right. So I've got my 5. I think he's owned by about 50% of the competition. I thought he would have been highly owned. It's Matt Short. How are you going to get him in? Because he's like 290k. I'm not sure, but I don't know what you're going to do if you don't have him. But how are you going to get to him? All right, that's he bats, bowls, takes catches. Except when I had him captain when he scored a 10 2 ranked rounds ago. But we won't talk about that. All right, next I've got, like as we discussed, Kane Richardson. Not going to get him any cheaper. He's going to bowl his 4 overs and just get him in for 170k. I've got Jamie Overton, who I've had from the start. He's gone up to, I think is he over 200k now?
Yeah, 214.
Yep, 214. Yep, and that's bowls, but batting at 6, bowling 4 overs, gets 4 bites of the cherry. So he's definitely one to target. I've got Aaron Hardy, who's batting at 3, friendly batting pitches. He might even roll the arm over for a couple of overs as well. He's in ripping form. And I've got Andrew Tye. So not just for this round, but the next round, that's 4 lots of death overs. So, he should score plenty of points. And that's fine.
Like it.
Yep. Brian, what have you got for us?
Very similar. Also on Andrew Tye, he's got a pretty low break even too. I think it's like 30. So you could probably make some good cash from him. I guess, top pick, I'm trying to avoid the obvious ones. Like Matt Short, he's 98% owned in the top 5% of teams. So everybody that's competing this year will have him. Everybody will have Jamie Overton. If you don't, I'd be getting him this round. So I agree with Loch on that one. I think he's near a must with his role. Most people have Darcy Short as well. Now, the biggest change, I guess, is Aaron Hardy and Josh Inglis. Aaron Hardy, I'd probably say, is my number one target, purely because I traded him out. So he was the first guy I needed to try and get back into my team. Just negative break even, 207K. If you're not planning on holding him over the next or after the double, he's going to be a really nice, juicy price for you to move on to basically anybody that you want for the run home as well. So that's one thing to consider if you're planning on trading him out. Jai Richardson for the reasons I already mentioned. And maybe just to get a bit spicy, let's go Zach Crawley in there. And we need to remember that this guy is an international caliber opening batsman playing in a domestic cricket competition. So when we're talking about players at that level, like I know Quinton de Kock is probably a really poor example of that because he's been ordinary. But when we look at how good the wicket's going to be over the next 2 games for the Scorchers, I think he could be a really nice kind of differential as an option that isn't as obvious. He could be a really nice pod.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty good list. I think we've all got a few key components like identical here. So I've got Hardy as my number one. I won't go through the reasons because most of them are the same. We've already covered that. Got Hardy as my number one. I've got Jai Richardson as my number 2 trade-in. This is not just for me. This is just a general list. Number 3, I've got Zach Crawley. I am that as high on him as you are, Bruno. And number 4, I've got Spencer Johnson. I do think that although he's not playing this round, he's 100k on a pretty good bowling wicket this round. You don't want to have to pay hypothetically 130 for him, 120 for him when you can get him at just about $100,000. You can save yourself 20k. You don't even have to play him. He could be a bench loop. But I guess it's a luxury trade if you've got enough numbers. And then number 5, it probably should be Spencer Johnson. Jamie Overton should probably be ahead of him, but I've got him in there. I've assumed most people will own him by now. If you don't, he's a massive priority trade in. He's batting 5 and bowling 4 overs. Like it's almost as good as Glenn Maxwell's role, but there's no one else who has a better role than those two. I don't think.
Yeah, can I revisit the Spencer Johnson shout because I love it. I really like it. I was actually speaking to Mick, one of my co-hosts, about him, and I was very tempted to kind of forego one of these Perth batsmen to get Spencer Johnson in early. This, like we mentioned already, the wicket at Coffs is probably going to be a bit juicy. There might be something in it. But also, we need to think about next round too. When they're on the double, they play both of their games at the Gabba. So they're both at home. The Gabba is very well known to be bouncy. It's had a lot of rain up there as well, so there's a very good chance that there's going to be a lot in the wicket for both games at the Gabba next round. And imagine having Spencer Johnson bowling 150s at you with a little bit in the wicket, and we know that the Gabba has a lot of bounce. Yeah, no thanks. I wouldn't want to be at the other end. So I really like that shout. He's a priority get in for me next week, but you guys can leave that for next show.
Yeah, and well, look, the dude's also had a pretty quiet season for someone who just went for nearly 2 million in an IPL auction. You'd think he'd feel a little bit of this pressure to perform, and you'd hope he delivers. Yeah, he just seems to be a very good cricketer, and he probably hasn't had as good of a start as he would have liked, but he bounced back in his most recent game. I think he scored something, got a couple of wickets, got into the 60s with his Supercoach score there. Well, that should do it for today. Thanks to Supercoach Brain and Supercoach Loch for hopping on. Your efforts are much appreciated, and all the best with the rest of your season.
Thanks, mate. It was
All
good
right.
fun.
Good luck, guys.
All right,
Thanks a
cheers.
lot.
And if you need to contact the Supercoach Hub in any way, they're on Twitter at Supercoach Hub. Make sure you're following there, and make sure you're following them on Instagram at the Supercoach Hub as well. The Discord link is in their bio, and if you look, if you feel like you must follow me, then I'm on Twitter at Supercoach Guns and Instagram's at supercoach.bbl.guns. Thanks for listening, and catch us next round. Cheers.